morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be in crypto world. Um, we are here for Is Bitcoin a Ponzi Scheme Edition 3? And I'm very pleased to be able to introduce D. He is Russian, and I am not going to attempt to destroy his name. He told me that it's okay just to refer to him as D. And you guys have his Twitter handle on the screen now, so you can go and follow him. I would suggest that. And what we're going to do is I'm going to take off first and explain to D my thesis of why I feel like that Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme, and then he's going to counter, and then we'll go back and forth with questioning each other. So I'm going to start off from the beginning, and I need to tell you just a little bit about me first. A lot of you that have heard me before have heard this. In my past, I spent 10 years doing nothing but studying and learning how to identify Ponzi schemes. And so if we listen to Malcolm Gladwell, I've got over 10,000 hours of dedicated research in identifying what a Ponzi scheme is and what it isn't. So I'm an outlier. And when I looked at Bitcoin originally, it wasn't a Ponzi scheme because it was designed in the white paper for peer to peer payments, but it failed at that. Um, Practically, there are some people that use it to transfer value, but mostly it's looked at today as a store of value. And so the first thing that I'd like to do is give everybody what my working definition is of a Ponzi scheme, including D. All right. Now, the thing that I love about this the most is I asked Google or Grok or whoever I got this from to give me the three main elements of a Ponzi scheme, and it gave me four. So if y'all are still 100% believing in Grok, you might want to second guess that because Grok is not as smart as it will be in the future. So the elements of a Ponzi scheme include investor deposits. Okay, now you can say investor deposits in Bitcoin. People will say, well, they're not depositing, well, they're buying. So new money is going into it. So that checks the first box. Number two, there are little or no legitimate business operations. All right, it's not a business; it's a network. Right, so there can't be any legitimate business operations. Number three, little or no business profits. Well, if it's not a business, there's no profit. There's no business profit. And number four, the source of returns to investors is from money, cash, received from the new investors. And I want to take a second to explain how that works in the Bitcoin Ponzi. Jane bought Bitcoin yesterday at 105,000. This is an example only. I'm not saying that these numbers are exact. So Sale and Sailor went and re-leveraged himself again. Even though he's being sued, he decided to do it again, and he created $2 billion more and bought Bitcoin. So Jane woke up today with nothing that happened in the Bitcoin network except Sale and Sailor's new money came into it, and now Jane looks at the value of Bitcoin today, and it's risen to $109,000. That's a Ponzi scheme, folks. Now it's different, and I did want to make sure that I covered this, and then I'll give uh, D his shot. Um, Everything in this universe evolves. Everything. You change and adapt, or you cease to exist. That's the law of the jungle, baby. In 1920, when 20s, when Charles Ponzi created the initial Ponzi schemes, they looked like a certain way. People went over to other people's houses, and that's how they conducted the Ponzi scheme. They did it by handing cash money to each other. And the ones who got there first got paid, and the last ones that got in got screwed. Now, I want to use another analogy that I've used before, and that's a bank robbery. In the 1920s, if D and I were going to go rob a bank, let's say he's going to be the getaway driver, so he stays outside. I go into the bank, and I've got a gun and I've got a mask and I've got a paper bag for the money to go in. So I go up to the tell her I put the gun in her face and I say, "You give me the money." She does. I walk out, get the drive getaway car with D, and we run off with our ill-gotten gains. We made a bank robbery. All right. Well, bank robberies have evolved today, and I believe, and D can confirm this when he speaks to us. I believe he's a coder. All right. So he has the ability, if he chose to, he can go rob a bank sitting in his house in his pajamas by hacking into the bank. And so when people are trying to tell me that Bitcoin isn't a Ponzi because it doesn't have this or it doesn't have that, it has evolved. Ponzi's have evolved. You don't have to go to someone's house now. So when people try to tell me that Bitcoin isn't a Ponzi, and a bank robbery getting hacked into is not really a bank robbery, they're just not being honest with themselves. Bank robberies have evolved, and the Bitcoin Ponzi looks like this. And then I'll be quiet and let D have his shot. In the Bitcoin Ponzi, a next generation Ponzi, it looks like this. You've got the suckers who are listening to the promoters. All right. Then they put their new money at the top. They put their new money in. And one of the things that people love to say, it's not centralized. Yes, it is. The Stevie Wonder can identify the big black circle in the center. That is the central authority. Everything is connected to the Bitcoin network, right? So the new money goes in based on the Bitcoin marketing machine, the promoters, the influencers, who are telling you what's going to happen with Bitcoin. And I'll show you a quick picture of one of them. This guy said Bitcoin is going to $10 million per coin. Well, the average person out there is listening to that. It's 110,000 or 109,000 right now. This Yahoo, who's getting sued now, is telling everybody it's going to go to 10 million. That's promoting it, folks. Now, the on and off ramps come into the picture where that's how you buy Bitcoin. You've got to go to an exchange or you can trade it with another person. But mainly the way that people buy into the Bitcoin Ponzi is they do it on Coinbase. They do it on Uphold. It's how I did it when I first bought into Bitcoin. So this is the diagram of what the Bitcoin Ponzi looks like and how it functions. And I'll say one last thing, and then I'll breathe a little bit and give D his shot. The only way, the only way that the Bitcoin Ponzi grows is new money in. There are not multiple income streams with the Bitcoin Ponzi. It's one way, and it's new money coming in. And if they don't get government and bank money involved, it's going to die because the retail money cannot keep it going because they've taken it about as far as they can. They have got to get the bank money and they've got to get the governments involved or the new money stops. When the new money stalls long enough, the last people in don't have the same belief with the people that got in at 10,000 or 5,000. And they're going to get out because they're not going to make any money because there's no new money coming in to help them make any money. And there's no other revenue stream like research and development, like bringing out a new product or a new service to generate income. The only way that the income grows in this Ponzi and every other Ponzi is it has got to be new money coming in. So, D, I deeply appreciate your willingness to be patient, to let me share my thesis. And now I'm going to do what I do the best. Some people say, actually, most people say, I'm going to be quiet for a little while and give you the stage.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Well, to start with, I'd like to reframe a bit of how we perceive Bitcoin. It's not similar to typical financial assets like stocks or bonds. It's rather a digital commodity, so we should better compare the way the market moves to the way silver or, for example, gold market moves. They also don't have any tangible revenue that comes from some tangible business or something that this asset represents. It represents nothing. It just has value in itself. So Bitcoin is more like a commodity, and that's why new money flowing in is actually the only source of the increase in the market cap. It's absolutely reasonable to say that it's okay. There's no problem about that. Don't you agree?
Well, the problem with that is that that makes it a Ponzi scheme. All right. So, and you mentioned silver, and you mentioned and gold is another commodity. Silver and gold both have utility. In other words, there's a speculation in the market for gold. People buy it because they think number going to go up. But there is also a part of that market that is the utility market in gold. In other words, electricians buy it because it's a good conductor of electricity, so they put it in electronics. They buy some dentists buy it to make gold teeth. Some jewelers buy it to make gold jewelry. When we look at the Bitcoin Ponzi, there is no other use except the number is going to go up. There is only speculation with Bitcoin. It has no utility. That makes it a Ponzi scheme because it has no utility. And the only thing that's going to make it increase in value, inflate in value, is new money coming into it.
Well, I would agree that the utility of Bitcoin diminishes and its use as a medium of exchange continuously goes down. There's a lot of data that supports it. The thing is that just as gold has some utility value, Bitcoin also has some utility value, but the the share of the demand that comes from that utility value at the current stage is way smaller than the share of the demand that comes from speculations. So it's like that little bubble that constitutes the utility value, and then there's a huge speculative bubble on top of that. So the problem is that in time, with time, Bitcoin made this utility bubble smaller. The Bitcoin market made it smaller, and the speculative bubble grows more and more. And the more the speculative bubble grows, the less the utility bubble becomes, because speculations diminish its usability as an actual utility tool. And how I see the market, it's not strictly Ponzi. I would put it that it is a market cornering scheme at the current stage. At a certain time, the hodl mentality emerged. I think it was 2013, if I'm not mistaken, that renowned post on the Bitcoin Talk forum stating that, proclaiming that hodl mentality to just buy and never sell, to accumulate coins and to drive them out of circulation. And that's the strategy that is predominant within the community. Now, the entire community is mostly constituted of people who just want to promote that strategy, just buy Bitcoin and hold it and don't use it. Those same people who allegedly promote the adoption of Bitcoin, the usage of Bitcoin, they don't do it themselves. They just buy and sit there and want to get rich quick because new people will come and buy new Bitcoins and they will simply corner the market. And a sailor, whom you mentioned before as the main driver, the main person that is now in front of that crowd, does exactly the same. He tries to evaporate liquidity from the market. He compresses the available float, and it makes the price go up quicker and quicker. He just moves up the multiplier. And the more of such people come, and the more competition, uh, even if it sounds a bit odd, but Sailor's competitors actually help him. They're on the same path. They're reaching the same goal. They want to squeeze the float out of the market, and then they want to just inflate the price indefinitely. They expect the price to grow perpetually because they took more and more liquidity of the market. And by doing this, they make the price grow because the demand may stay the same. It may grow a bit, it may drop a bit, but they will always have more share locked than being circulated on the market. And it's not strictly Ponzi, it's more market cornering. That's what I would want to say. That's my
Right.
take
Well,
on the
and
matter.
and 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 I would say we can call it Ponzi or cornering the market, but it's not really negating my thesis that it is a Ponzi scheme. And I would also like to mention that when Bitcoin came into being, um, it's a first mover. And if we all look at the history of first movers, they do not fare very well. The reason is because they jump out there and they really don't know what they don't know yet. They have to get out into the marketplace, let whatever thing they have created see if it works or not. Because in the on the drawing board, they really don't know if it's going to work yet or not. So when Satoshi put his white paper out there, he put it as a peer-to-peer payment system and it failed. Well, maybe some people have been in this a long time but still don't know, but XRP was created to be a better Bitcoin by Bitcoin developers, and they had the goal to do three things. The three things that Bitcoin failed at is it was slow. The transaction speed was too slow for peer-to-peer payments to be mass adopted. um, the transaction costs, because of the way the protocol proof of work works, was too expensive. And then the last thing is it's a set supply. Well, so XRP came along, and David Schwartz, the lead developer for Ripple, came out and he said that, okay, what we want to do is we want to make it faster, we want to make it cost less per transaction, and we want the supply to deflate, because every time an XRP transaction is executed, XRP is burned. And now that they've come out with RLUSD, their stable coin, every time the stable coin is used on the XRP ledger, XRP is burned. So I would ask you, D, if we could go back and see, it's one of the problems with Bitcoin is we can't go back and change anything and improve it. And that's one of the things that Bitcoin maxis think is a plus. It is not a plus if you cannot adapt. It is a huge problem. So, because that leaves the door open for the second comers to come in after you, fix what you can't do, and then go to market. So, one of my questions to you would be, D, is if, and I know we can't, but if we could go back and make Bitcoin faster, we could make the cost of the transaction slower, faster, less expensive, and then we could make the supply deflate instead of having a set 21 million forever. And I will say, and I know I'm saying this in a funny way, but it's true. The only way that the supply of Bitcoin decreases is if dumbasses lose their keys. That there's no other way that that 21 million goes down unless people lose their keys. So I don't think that that is really the greatest state of the art deflationary strategy that I've ever run across. They just didn't think about it at the time. They felt like having a set supply was a good idea, but in scarcity terms, I don't believe that a set supply works as well as a deflating supply, a decreasing supply. So you go ahead.
Well, I wouldn't compare directly Bitcoin to Ripple because it's like apples to oranges. XRP is a permissioned system and it's way different. The whole concept is way different. It's closer to fiat banking systems rather than to cryptocurrencies. So it's just a different concept. We can address some technical points, but conceptually, fundamentally different. It just doesn't do what Bitcoin was supposed to do. Bitcoin was supposed to be a permissionless, decentralized system, and Ripple is just by design not like that. Concerning the deflationary supply, I think that deflation is not what we should thrive to achieve if we want to build an actual medium of exchange. If we want to build an actual cryptocurrency, an asset that will be supposed to used as a medium of exchange, as money, as we use money now, for example, like to compete with fiat, then we need to target inflation and introduce a feedback policy rule to implement a counter-cyclical monetary policy. Without it, it just won't work. Nowadays, you can't bring a medieval concept of economy and think that it is going to work with the modern economic framework.
Well, D, if you had an XRP wallet, I can send you XRP wallet to wallet. It's permissionless. We don't have to go through anything. I've got Uphold is one place that I have a little bit of my XRP, and if you open a wallet on Uphold, I can send you XRP immediately, and it's faster, and the transaction cost is less than if on Uphold I had Bitcoin and I was sending it to you through an Uphold wallet to your Bitcoin wallet. It's just cheaper and faster. And again, from a scarcity standpoint, maybe not you, but a lot of the people that I've met who are Bitcoiners talk a lot about the scarcity, that there's only going to be 21 million and that's all there's ever going to be. And I get that. I'm a fan of scarcity. So I'm saying, if scarcity is in play, is it better to have a set supply and your scarcity is the total amount of that supply, or is it better, from a scarcity being more valuable the less there is, that it's better that the supply decreases? I would say that if Bitcoin was burned through every transaction based on utility, the supply was shrinking, that would increase the value of Bitcoin. I mean, that's the whole idea of scarcity. So I hope you understand. I don't need to go through Ripple to send you XRP. We just need to both have a wallet on Uphold, and I can send it to you immediately.
Yeah, but decreasing supply would also amplify the cornering scheme. So that mere scheme that we consider a scam or a Ponzi or whatever we call it, that is now happening in Bitcoin market, would be easier to execute if the supply actually contracted.
But also the value of it, that may be true. I'm not disputing that, but it would also increase the value. In other words, if there
Yeah.
was only 18 million instead of 3 mil, instead of 21, if it had decreased in supply to 18, it would be much more valuable, in my opinion, than it is at 21 million. Because if people really value it and there's less of it, the value goes up. And that's one of the things that I like about Ripple, um, is that they have set it up to where their supply is decreasing. And I think that that is a major plus, because I want it used up. I want it used up as much as it can be used, because the more it's used, the value of it goes up. The supply goes down, the value of the existing supply goes up. That's basic economics.
Yeah, sure. I agree with that, but it depends on whether you evaluate scarcity as something good, as positive, or, for example, if you view it as an instrument to perform schemes like cornering scheme, like bubble inflations or Ponzi or whatever else. So it can lead to different outcomes. It's just a tool. The way we use it, it's on us. It's subjective.
Well, I guess, my response back to that, and not you, um, but the because you're giving me a different spin on scarcity. The general idea that that I have seen is they are all for scarcity. They love it that there's only
Yeah,
21
sure.
million that are ever going to be created. Well, I get that, but if a decreasing supply is going to have more value, you're saying that it's going to increase the chances of bad things happening. But I, that's not how I'm seeing the Bitcoiners portray it. It's one of their badges of honor that there's only going to be 21 million of it and there's never going to be any more. They love the fact that it's scarce. And my part of my thesis is that if that supply was decreasing, and it is, because dumbasses lose their keys. But that's not intentional, that's stupidity. But that it's still, if there are truly D, only 18 million Bitcoin in reality, because 3 million of them have been lost, that 18 million is more valuable than the number is at 21 million, because there's less of it. Higher demand, less of it, price goes up.
Yeah, sure, I agree. But you see, the thing is that you don't need to lose keys, for example, or to burn coins physically to make them non-existent, to make them wiped out of the blockchain. You can just log them permanently. That's the essence of the HODL strategy. You just log them, you diminish velocity of circulation, and it produces the same effect as just burning coins and decreasing the supply. So they love scarcity exactly because it allows them to perform that cornering scheme, to inflate that bubble. That's why they love it. That's why they promote it because it pumps their bags.
Well, are you are you making my argument now, D? Now, I did want to say something else that I found extremely interesting recently. Jack Dorsey was saying, and I'm not sure if you saw this, but Jack said, "Hey, if we don't do more with getting some use out of this thing, it's not going to work. We've got to get some utility in this Bitcoin." And then yesterday, or maybe the day before, there's a very loud Bitcoiner, a guy named Jason Williams. And Jason the other day said, if you use Bitcoin to buy at Steak and Shake, you are a retard. Now, who, what person out there listening to these two prominent people in the Bitcoin ecosystem are they supposed to listen to? Are we supposed to buy it and hold it forever? Or are we supposed to use it like Jack Dorsey is saying? And Jason Williams is saying if you sell any of this stuff or use any of this stuff, you're a retard. Well, I mean, to a interested observer looking on the outside looking in, which of those two are we supposed to listen to, D?
Well, that happens because Satoshi's initial ideas and principles and the whole ethos of Bitcoin has been abandoned by the community. The community was overthrown by those hodlers who just want to pump up their bags, nothing else. And those people who say that you should use Bitcoin, those are exact people that support the initial ideas, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. They want you to use it as such. They want to proliferate it as such. They want to build more utility upon Bitcoin and more utility demand. But those people who don't need utility makes circulation grow. If you use Bitcoin as a medium of exchange, if we pay with it, it makes the velocity of circulation grow. And a growing velocity adds to the float on the market and tanks the price. It's an opposite of the cornering scheme. It hinders it. So those people who want to hodl, those who want to corner the market, those who want to take off every liquidity of the market, lock it in their wallets, and see how the diminishing float just pumps up the multiplier and how the market skyrockets. They don't want to use your bitcoins because it returns them back into circulation. It hinders their scheme. That's the whole point.
So if Satoshi, I can't do this. I mean, I've done some amazing things in my life, but I'm not going to be able to get Satoshi to come visit us in this conversation, D. I know it might be a shock to you. You maybe figured I could, but we're not going to be able to do that. But do you think if Satoshi joined us in this conversation, do you think that he is happy about the direction that the Bitcoin ecosystem has grown into with this hodling mentality? Or do you think that he would be disappointed that it's not being used as how he designed it as a peer to peer payment network?
Well, I think that nothing of his initial ideas and of his initial principles of all that cypherpunk narrative is left in Bitcoin right now. It's just a tool to pump your bags to make you rich quick. And it's used by those exact people whom he opposed, institutions, governments. It was created to oppose the conventional fiat infrastructure, to oppose the modern financial system. And what those people are doing is just exactly the opposite of what he would expect.
Yeah, I see that the same. And the other thing that, and I don't know if I mentioned it before. I hope I did, but I am not an XRP maxi. I understand my Twitter account says XRP Army Community Channel. My YouTube channel is XRP Army Community Channel. It's the biggest holding that I have. But the first crypto that I ever bought was Bitcoin. I started looking at it in 2014 and was captivated. I was spending my money on other things. So another time for another story. Um, and then in 2017, I finally jumped in and I bought $1,500 worth of Bitcoin. It was $15,000. 3 months later, D, it went boom down to 3,000. So I went from telling all my friends I have found nirvana. I have found the fountain of money. Come get it with me. I stopped saying that and I was like, oh. And then I ran into XRP. And then the second one that I bought was Ethereum. And I held on to that until I understood ETHgate. And as soon as it looked like Bitcoin was failing for payments and it was going to be a store of value, and I understood ETHgate, about 3 years ago, I sold all of the Ethereum and all of the Bitcoin that I had and bought the rest of the XRP that I own. But I'm a hodler. I've got a very significant bag of XRP, but I haven't bought any in 5 years. I mean, I'm just, waiting on the amount that I bought. And it's done very well for me, D, because my dollar cost average is 25 cents. So what, it was $2.35 today. I've done well just to
Well,
where
good
it's
for you.
at,
Congratulations.
just to where it's at right now. And I think once the SEC begins to approve the ETFs, I think XRP is going to go significantly up. I think if they acquire Circle, their stable coin business is going to go significantly up. Um, and I'm saying all of that to get to a point that I wanted to ask you. The thing that I have found, one of the things that I have found mystifying is it's just mind boggling. As an XRP Army member, I was regularly getting attacked by Bitcoiners about XRP being the banker's coin. And look, they create software to make banks do what they do easier. Guilty as charged. But the Bitcoiners were the anti-bank and the anti-government coin, and now they're doing everything they can to suck on the teat of the bank money and the governments. They want every bank to use it, and they want every state in the United States to put it in their strategic reserve. And I'd like to know from your standpoint, how did that switcherooski happen?
Well, that brings us to the same point that those early adopters who supported Satoshi's initial ideas, they just gave up. They just mostly left. I don't see many people. The narrative changed. The narrative that has been in the community for maybe the first 5 years, maybe six, seven, way up until 2017. I think 2017 was the pivotal point when they introduced Segwit and Lightning Network, and many understood that this is a wrong path to go. Those block size wars and all the consequences of that. And since that time, most people who supported Bitcoin as a financial revolution, as a medium of exchange, as a money of the future, they became more skeptical towards Bitcoin. And those people who support those huddle issues, those institutionals coming and pumping up their bags, all those new entities there that are entering the game and multiplying that cornering strategy. People just embrace it because it pumps up their bags, and that's it. There's nothing ideological to that, just money.
Okay, so back to my, I'm going to bring this up again. Back to my identifiers about
Mhm.
if it's a Ponzi scheme or not. Do you agree that they're investor deposits or people buy Bitcoin?
Well, from your bullet points, I have a struggle about the fourth one, the source of returns to investors from cash received from new investors.
But
See,
we're good on the first three.
uh, first three, yes, but for example, the second point, little known to no legitimate business operations. If Bitcoin is just a commodity, a digital commodity, there shouldn't be any business operations. Just like silver or gold, there are no legitimate operations behind
Well,
silver or
I
gold.
would say D even further that it's not a business. All it is a money processor that processes the new money in, and then that new money in inflates the value. And again, this is a next Ponzi, a next gen Ponzi. So it's not exactly like the Ponzi's of the past. It has evolved. So the money in is not distributed immediately to the participants, but it inflates their value. And for them then to cash in on that value, they've got to go through an exchange to exchange their Bitcoin for fiat or for whatever, if they want to switch it to another coin or whatever they do. But the only thing that makes it go up is like my analogy earlier with Sailor. Jane bought at 105,000. Sailor puts in 2 billion more into the kitty, and Jane's value goes to 106,000, 109,000, based on absolutely nothing other than the new money that Sailor put into it. And that's how I'm saying that the it fits number four, because the only source of the return is new money coming in from new, and it's not new investors, but new money. And if there was any, and that's one thing that I can't find anybody that I've had this conversation with or otherwise that can tell me how the Bitcoin number goes up other than that one thing. And that's new money coming in. There's no research and development. There's no new acquisitions. There's no, because it's not a business. And if it's not a business, what's left? A structure that functions by taking in new money and inflating the value of the entire market. And then if you want to cash in on that, you've got to sell it to realize your gains. Well, to me, that is a next generation Ponzi textbook.
Well, I want to ask you then, have you studied market cornering examples like the cornering of the silver market by Hunt Brothers in 70s?
I have not, but I will. And I appreciate you bringing that up to me.
Uh, well, I certainly suggest you to do it because if we look at it, it's very similar to what's happening now with Bitcoin. So by the start of the run, if I'm not mistaken, the price of silver was about $6. Then they started their scheme. They performed a leverage cornering. They quite a lot of debt for it and engaged in marginal trade. And by the end of the run, silver costs something about $50. So it's almost a tenfold increase. And the thing is that the utility value of silver didn't increase much during that time. It didn't face any increase in demand. There was no technology that required excessive amounts of silver that emerged during that time.
Gotcha.
Uh, that premium from 6 to 50 is purely a speculative bubble that they created. And it's very similar to Bitcoin, except that probably the premium is even bigger. So the utility value of Bitcoin may be even less than 10%. Uh, I saw some studies that claim that actual transactional use of Bitcoin as of now is about 5%. So only 5% of Bitcoin transactions are actual payments, whereas all the rest is anything else, speculative mostly. Whereas in 2020, the share was about 10%. So its utility functions diminish. over
So
time.
okay,
And
so it's interesting that you say that, D, because the gentleman that I had a conversation with previous to you was he was telling me that millions of people in Africa are using Bitcoin for payments every day. And I've really found that hard to believe. And so let me ask you this: what with where you see things are today, were you more of a Bitcoin purist where you saw the original vision of what Satoshi had created, and then you've seen it not move in the direction that you would have liked it? And if you are in that camp, D, where do you see it moving from here, moving forward? Because I did remember that you mentioned that you felt like that, and our wording is a little bit different, but I think our idea of where it's going may be very similar. I consider it a Ponzi, but you said you thought it was a bubble. So with where it has evolved to right now and where you see it heading, are you more optimistic about Bitcoin today than you ever have been?
well, I'm surely not more optimistic, and I think it's a one-way trip already. There's no backstop, and there's nothing that can send Bitcoin back and bounce back to the utility functions, because once the sailor and institutionals entered the game, and he already inflated a huge capital, hundreds of billions of dollars. Uh, there's just no turning back from that. They will go until they corner the market completely, until the multiplier raises to the values that will simply make the market dysfunctional. And then there may be different scenarios. Maybe regulators will interfere before that boiling point happens. Maybe we'll see some, I don't know, strategical pivot. They somehow introduce a new strategy. However, I don't see any clear path of how they can do it, but maybe there's some sophisticated scheme that I just can't see through. But
Yet. Yeah. Well,
but I'm most
Sailor's getting sued now. And one other thing, do you see as I do, and it's okay if you don't, but do you see as I do what happens if no new money goes in? If there's nothing else generating any revenue besides new money coming in, and you got to remember the people that got in last are the least committed. They're the least convinced. So if I just bought $5,000 worth of Bitcoin yesterday and it stays flat for a month, and I see other digital assets and other investments going up, are you telling me that there's going to be people that are sticking with Bitcoin for their $5,000 investment when they see it's flatlining for the period of time? And if those people lose confidence and then begin to sell, then the next level of the least committed are going to be next. And then it's going to be you will look at it, I believe, as the bubble popping, as I look at it as the Ponzi collapsing. And don't get me wrong, I don't ever think it's going to go to zero. I do not. I do. Sailor will die with his keys in his casket, and the other Bitcoiners that are Max Kaiser, he will die with his keys in his casket. I don't believe that. So I don't think it's ever going to go to zero, but do I think that it's going to hit a plateau where there's not going to be increased growth? Yes, I believe that that's going to happen. Absolutely.
Yeah, sure. There's a certain point in a market cornering scheme where it simply mathematically cannot grow further. As I said, each extraction of circulating coins squeezes the circulating float on the market and amplifies the price to inflow multiplier. So with each new $1 that enters the market, each new $1 of the capital inflow, the market cap goes up for more and more value. For example, we can't say for sure, but we can roughly estimate that the multiplier is around 4 to 5 right now. An average, it can fluctuate within a very wide band. It can reach triple digit and then drop down to one. But on average, it's probably about 4 to 5. There are different estimates, different numbers. But if we assume that it's about 5, then it allows Sailor to amplify his gains just because of that multiplier. So he buys a certain amount, he performs an ATM, he buys, for example, $1 billion of bitcoins on the spot market, OTC market, whatever, where he acquires them. And his bags that he already have, the volume that he already possesses, it grows up in value already just because he bought new money. He tightened the float on the market. He already gets gains not just by buying the asset, because the asset grows, and then even if his competitors come and do the same, his
Right.
assets, not only their asset but his assets grow. But this scheme cannot grow indefinitely. There's certain sane ceiling for that. Multiplier cannot grow indefinitely. If it reaches
D,
some absurd levels, then
This doesn't sound sane like that sane part you just mentioned. Okay, so another way that I've looked at it too is in the design flaw. If you if you put all the money in the world, and I know this isn't going to happen, but if you're going to test something, go to the end and see if it still makes sense at the end. If we got all the money in the world in it, it still has an insatiable desire for new money to do anything else. You see what I'm saying? And what happens when the 21 million is completely gone, is completely mined? There's not ever going to be any more, because people talk about that there's value here because it's not all created yet. Well, you better do it fast, because we're going to need energy for AI coming up here pretty soon. And I don't think they're going to have a whole lot of patience for Bitcoin energy when we need all of that energy for AI.
well, I don't think that this cornering scheme can last for even a decade. I think it's probably a matter of years, maybe 3 to 5. I can't estimate. I'm not an analyst to do some precise forecasts, but I think it's not a matter of decades until the bubble grows to some boiling point where something will happen with it. Maybe a collapse, maybe something else,
So,
maybe regulators interfere before that happens.
so what? Well, they're suing Sailor now, a class action lawsuit. So I guess that's his shareholders or somebody, and maybe not regulators. But I agree with you there. But so you don't see it as a positive um, movement in the development of Bitcoin that Jack Mallers now is coming out with his own copycat of Sailor's strategy.
Well, it may matter or matter not. There are a lot of competitors who would gladly pick up the banner of Sailor and continue his job, but this may cause some psychological effect. People will just see that there are certain risks to this strategy, and if Sailor faces consequences, maybe it will amend the strategy of the other players.
Well, also, I think what it could do is it might also amend the strategy of a state who is looking at putting Bitcoin in their strategic reserve, and maybe even more, the federal government buying Bitcoin to put in a U.S. government strategic reserve. If they see if it's negative consequences for Sailor, then they may think twice about wanting to buy any. And the U.S. government has not said that they're going to buy any Bitcoin to put in their strategic reserve. They have said that they're going to put what they've already confiscated into that. And that everything is subject to change. It could change, but I think if Sailor gets into trouble, I think that's going to have, you're going to like this, a ripple effect on the rest of people potentially wanting to touch Bitcoin from the government standpoint and the bank standpoints.
Well, maybe this can happen. We don't know. We don't know how it ends. Frankly speaking, I cannot fathom why governments enter this game, because what they do, whatever the channel they choose, they may not acquire bitcoins for on the spot market. They may pursue that strategy just to keep confiscated bitcoins in their reserves. But anyway, they contribute to that cornering scheme, which is not a good thing. I don't know. Maybe they were brainwashed by Maxis and really think that it brings
Well,
something good. I don't know.
Well, if people watch, I watch. I'm a noticer. It's a good book, by the way. I just found it the other day. The Noticer by Andy Andrews. I highly recommend it. Um, David Sachs, BTC Maxi. He's the crypto czar. Now, I will give him credit that he divested his Bitcoin holdings when he became the crypto and AI czar. I got respect for that guy because of that. But Nutnik, he's a Bitcoin maxi. He hasn't divested his. He's the head of the Treasury. And then this nutbag, Senator Dumas is what I call her, dumbass from Wyoming, Senator Loomis, Bitcoin maxi to the extreme. Did you see the other day that she had a sit down appointment with Brad Garlinghouse and she canceled on him? And
Well,
her staffers told Brad, we're not interested in rescheduling this. And see, the problem the reason that irks me, D, is that if she was an XRP maxi and she had an appointment with Saylor and then she pulled that crap, that would piss me off too, because she's a government official. She's not a big, I mean, she's not supposed to be trying to conduct herself as a Bitcoin maximalist from a position of a senator in the United States. If she's going to contribute to any regulatory crypto legislation at all, she needs to do the right thing and divest her Bitcoin holdings while she's involved in the Senate. And that's how I feel about that.
yeah, probably I agree. But you see, this motto, Bitcoin not crypto, is pushed very aggressively by the community. And maybe many officials fall into it. They think that it's a predominant point of view within the population. Maybe they think that it makes them more popular if they follow it.
Okay. So, D, last question. Where do you see the future? And you kind of have answered this as we've gone along, but I just want to make sure we get it on the record from you before we close up. Where do you see Bitcoin going? And do you feel like that there are other cryptos out there that have a higher upside?
Well, I'm just working on such a kind of a crypto myself. Actually, what I'm doing, my project, is trying to implement Satoshi's initial ideas and build an actual cryptocurrency that will serve as a medium of exchange. And I designed a lot. I've spent a lot of time to solving all the problems that emerge from that, and there are a lot, and they're very difficult. But as I assess it, I came a rather long and rather productive way, and has achieved results that nobody has before me at the time. At least I don't know anyone who went that far. So my view is that I'll try to implement my system and actually implement Satoshi's initial ideas of building a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, which Bitcoin failed to. But as for Bitcoin, I think it will remain, but it will be some kind of, historical monument of like it was the first thing of such kind, the pioneering asset, and it will have some historical value, and it won't go to zero. It will continue to exist, but it won't be perceived as something groundbreaking, some game changer that changes something in the world's finance. It doesn't perceived as a new form of money, maybe
Well,
just like a meme coin with a, very high historical value, very respected.
well, I am very intrigued listening to you say that. And I would be very interested as you make progress in your pursuit of your project that you keep me updated on that, because I, like you, in the very beginning, I was captivated with the idea that Satoshi presented in the white paper. And then I saw it going horribly wrong, and that's when I sold. Um, and I don't see that there's enough money that is going to continue to go into it to keep it going. Because another thing about Ponzi schemes, The longer they go, the larger amount of money it takes to keep them going. And so if you look at, I mean, it's going to take more money to go from 100,000 to 10 million than it did no money to 100,000. I mean, you just, it's an insatiable need for more new money. And uh, one last question. In what you are designing, D, are you going to try and stick with proof of work as your protocol?
Oh no, of course not. This stack is obsolete. No, no one would design a proof of work blockchain in 2020s. It makes no sense, and furthermore, it's just incompatible with the ideas that I implement. I developed a breakthrough economic model of a decentralized algorithmic central bank. Basically, it's just the Fed on blockchain, completely decentralized. It can perform counter-cyclical feedback policy, just like the Fed does, to target the interest rate, target the inflation rate, but without reliance on any off-chain data, on any governments. And that's the true breakthrough, because now we can do something that fiat can, but we can do it on blockchain, unlike Bitcoin, who introduced something, well, obsolete as an economic concept. Satoshi tried to mimic the gold standard, but the gold standard worked in medieval times and it started failing during the Industrial Revolution, and it certainly would fail if we try to implement it nowadays. We absolutely need counter-cyclical policy, and that's a moment that everyone would want to invent and to transfer into the blockchain. And I managed to do it, and I think it's gonna actually work. I'm pretty sure about it.
Well, good. Well, I'm like I said, I'm very interested in hearing more about that as you make more progress. And D, have you ever visited the United States?
No, unfortunately not.
Well, if you ever visit the United States and get anywhere near the South, now I know that this is probably going to inflame some people from Texas, but in the state of North Carolina, we've got the best damn barbecue in all of the entire world. So if you ever make it to North Carolina, look me up, and I will take you out for one of the best barbecue eating that you've ever had in your entire life. And I would like to sincerely thank you for being willing to have this conversation with me. And I bet you have 6 weeks now. You're the third person I've had a conversation with. I cannot get these Bitcoiners to talk to me about this. And I mean, I don't know why they're scared. I'm not a mean, horrible person. I mean, I like myself a lot. And you do too, or you wouldn't be laughing.
Yeah, sure, I can confirm.
Good. Well, I'm very much looking forward to your visit to the States at some point. And if I ever make it to Russia, then I'm going to find you. And I don't drink, so we can't have any vodka. Or you can, but I can't. But I very much thoroughly enjoyed meeting you and listening to you. And I hope that you will keep me informed and updated on the progress of your project.
Yeah, sure, we'll keep in touch.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you.
thanks for the offer. Thanks for the invitation to the
Oh
conversation.
yeah, you're gonna love it when you get over here, man. I'm gonna get you some Southern Lexington barbecue, and you're gonna think, man, God, have I gotten through far this far in life without a lot of this? All right, take care, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed our conversation. I've got a another one lined up with a gentleman named Cedric Bow. As soon as we can put our schedules together, and this is an open invitation to every single Bitcoiner out there. If you agree to debate me, I promise you I will treat you with respect. But we're gonna we're gonna have a discussion about it. But I'm not gonna go lowbrow. I'm gonna treat you with honor and respect. And let's have an adult conversation and see if we can help come to a conclusion and let other people see both sides of where we're coming from. All right. Well, D, thanks again. I'm going to turn the recording off now. Take care. And once again, I sincerely thank you for being willing to come on and have a chat with me.
Thanks for conversation. It was a pleasure.
Okay, take care.